allow me to transport you to a place where time itself seems to have stopped, where the desert sands hold secrets that defy everything we think we know. There, majestic and immutable, stands the Great Sphinx of Giza, a stone creature with the body of a lion and the gaze of a god. For centuries, official history has dictated its origin, carved by Pharaoh Khafra, a 4th dynasty monument erected some 4,500 years ago to guard the pyramids of Giza. A neat, complete, and comforting account. It describes ramps, copper tools, and thousands of workers under the pharaoh's divine command. It is a saga of human ingenuity, of a civilization at its peak. But what if that story were a lie? What if the Sphinx is far older than the pharaohs, older than Egypt itself, a relic of a forgotten time when the world was different, when rain fell on a green Sahara and a nameless civilization left its mark in the stone? Welcome, seekers of the unknown, to mysterious history to fall asleep. I am Mr. H, your guide through the shadows of the past, where truths lie buried beneath sand and silence. Close your eyes and imagine the Giza Plateau, not as the arid desert we know today, but as a lush and vibrant land. Thousands of years ago, before the pyramids rose, before the Nile became Egypt's lifeblood, this was a place of grasslands, lakes, and monsoon rains. The Sahara was not a wasteland, but a cradle of life where human settlements thrived, where rock art depicted herds of antelope and rivers that long ago vanished. This was the African humid period, a time between 7,000 and 4,000 BC, when the North African climate supported a world we can barely imagine. And it was during this era, some say, that the Sphinx was carved, not by the Egyptians, but by a people whose name has been erased by time itself. In the early 1990s, a geologist named Robert Schoch stood before the Sphinx and saw something that changed everything. He wasn't an Egyptologist, not trained to recite the accepted chronology of pharaonic construction. He was a stone scientist, a man who read the Earth's history in its scars. What he saw on the walls of the Sphinx enclosure wasn't the razor-sharp horizontal wear of wind and sand, the kind that has eroded nearby pyramids for millennia. Instead, he found deep vertical channels, rippled patterns, and softened corners that told a different story. These were the marks of water, not from fleeting desert storms, but from sustained torrential rains, the kind that flows down rock faces for centuries, carving channels and shaping stone in ways only a humid climate can achieve. For Schoch, the evidence was unmistakable. The Sphinx had endured a flood that ended thousands of years before the first pharaoh held a scepter. This discovery is a fracture in the foundations of Egyptology. If the Sphinx shows signs of water erosion from a time when Egypt was green, it could mean the monument predates the civilization to which we attribute its creation. The last time the Giza Plateau saw rainfall like this was more than 7,000 years ago, long before the Old Kingdom, before the unification of Egypt under Menes, before the hieroglyphics that tell us who ruled and what they built. If Schoch is right, the Sphinx could be 10,000 years old or more, a silent witness to a chapter of human history we have never written. But this raises a question that echoes through the centuries. Who carved this stone guardian, and why did its story fade? The traditional narrative insists that the Sphinx was built by Khafra, the pharaoh who erected the second pyramid at Giza. His name is linked to the monument through a fragmented statue found nearby, and the assumption that the Sphinx's face is a reflection of his own. Yet there are no inscriptions, no royal cartouches, no definitive text linking Khafra to the Sphinx. The evidence is circumstantial, a story built on proximity rather than proof. And when you look more closely, the cracks in that story widen. The temples beside the Sphinx, built from limestone blocks quarried from its enclosure, do not show the same water erosion. Their surfaces are sharp, angular, untouched by the rains that sculpted the Sphinx's walls. This suggests that the temples were built later, using stone cut from the Sphinx's own body, as if the monument was already there when the pharaohs arrived to claim it. Let's pause for that thought. The Sphinx, a colossal figure carved directly from bedrock, required an engineering feat of astonishing scale. More than 1,000 tons of limestone were removed to shape it, a project that demanded sophisticated planning, tools, and labor. The builders worked with the stone's natural grain, following its layers with a precision that rivals modern construction. Yet, unlike any other monument in Egypt, the Sphinx bears no name, no dedication, no claim of ownership. The pharaohs were not known for their humility. Their temples, statues, and tombs were theological statements, proclamations of divine power etched in stone to ensure their immortality. To find a monument of this scale, aligned with astronomical precision to the equinox sunrise, without a single hieroglyph praising its creator, is not just baffling, it's unthinkable. Now, consider the implications. If the Sphinx predates the pharaohs, it challenges everything we know about the development of human civilization. The accepted chronology places monumental architecture at the dawn of the Old Kingdom, around 3100 BC. But a Sphinx carved 7,000 years ago would belong to an era we call prehistoric, a period when humans supposedly lived in simple settlements, not reshaping landscapes with advanced engineering. This isn't just about dating a monument, it's about rewriting the story of who we were and what we were capable of. Could there have existed a civilization, lost to history, that possessed knowledge we have only now begun to rediscover? A civilization that understood geology, astronomy, and engineering in ways that challenge our assumptions about the past. This idea isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. Around the world, other ancient sites whisper of a forgotten chapter. Take Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a complex of stone pillars erected 12,000 years ago, before the invention of writing, before the rise of agriculture as we know it. Its builders moved stones weighing up to 20 tons, carved intricate reliefs, and aligned their structures with celestial events. Or consider the submerged ruins of Yonaguni, off Japan, with their precise angles and terraces, dated to a time when sea levels were lower, perhaps 10,000 years ago. These sites, like the Sphinx, don't fit into the neat progression of history we've been taught. They suggest a world where advanced knowledge existed long before we thought possible, only to be lost in some great catastrophe, a flood, a climate change, a collapse that buried its achievements beneath the sand and sea. And then there's the legend of Atlantis, told by the Greek philosopher Plato more than 2,300 years ago. He described a sophisticated civilization that flourished 9,000 years before its time, a society of architects and navigators that vanished in a single day and night of calamity. Could the Sphinx be a remnant of such a culture, a guardian left behind to mark a sacred site? The idea has been dismissed as a myth, but myths often contain fragments of truth. The African humid period ended abruptly around 4000 BC, when the Sahara transformed from a verdant paradise to a desert wasteland. Human populations migrated to the Nile, where Egypt would later emerge. What if the Sphinx was carved before that change, a monument to a world that was already fading, its builders knowing their time was running out? This brings us to a darker question. Why don't we know their names? Why is the Sphinx silent, its origins shrouded in a fog of forgetfulness? The ancient Egyptians were obsessive record keepers, mapping their kings, their gods, their victories in hieroglyphics that have survived millennia. Yet the Sphinx, the most enigmatic monument in their land, has no history, no creator, no purpose inscribed upon it. This silence seems deliberate, as if someone or something wanted its truth to remain hidden. The patterns of erosion tell one story, but the absence of words tells another. It is as if the builders chose anonymity over immortality, creating a monument that would endure not for fame, but for mystery. And this is where the whispers grow louder. Some say the Sphinx holds a secret far greater than its age. The psychic Edgar Cayce, in the early 20th century, spoke of a hall of records buried beneath the Sphinx, a chamber containing the knowledge of a lost civilization, texts, tools, perhaps even technology that could rewrite our understanding of the past. Ground-penetrating radar in the 1980s and 2000s detected anomalies beneath the monument, voids and cavities suggesting man-made structures. Yet when researchers tried to explore further, they were met with closed doors and official denials. Egyptian authorities have consistently dismissed these findings as natural fissures or insignificant. But why the secrecy? Why the refusal to investigate what lies beneath the Sphinx's pores? This is where the sand begins to shift. The story of the Sphinx isn't just about stone and rain. It's about what we're allowed to know and what has been buried, not by time, but by design. Water erosion, the lack of inscriptions, the anomalies beneath the plateau, all point to a truth that threatens the very foundations of history as we know it. The Sphinx doesn't just stand as a monument. It stands as a question, one that has waited thousands of years to be asked. Who built it? Why did they hide its purpose? And what aren't we supposed to find? If this mystery already has you questioning everything you've been told, subscribe. We're only at the beginning, and the shadows of Giza have so much more to reveal. As we head into the night, let the image of the Sphinx linger in your mind. A stone creature, half lion, half god, staring at the horizon where the sun rises each morning. It has seen empires rise and fall, seen the rains turn to dust, and has maintained its silence through it all. But silence is not empty. It is a presence, a weight, a challenge to those who dare to listen. The Sphinx is not just a monument. It is a warning that history is not what we believe, that the past holds secrets we have been taught to ignore, and that the truth may be far older, far stranger than we are prepared to accept. So let us keep asking. Let us keep digging. For the story of the Sphinx is only the first step into a labyrinth where memory itself has been buried, waiting for us to find it again. On our last journey, we stood before the Great Sphinx, its enclosure marked by water, hinting at a time before the pharaohs, a time when rain fell on a green Sahara and an unknown civilization carved a guardian to outlast their world. Tonight, we turn our gaze to the Great Pyramid itself, the towering heart of the Giza Plateau, a monument that speaks not in hieroglyphics, but in numbers. Numbers so precise, so universal, they challenge everything we believe about the past. What if the Great Pyramid is not a tomb, not a temple, but a machine? A machine not of gears or circuits, but of geometry and time, built to preserve knowledge through the collapse of civilizations. Close your eyes, let the desert wind fade away, and listen as the stones reveal their secrets. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands over 140 meters tall. Its 2.3 million limestone blocks a testament to a vision we can barely comprehend. Each block, weighing between 2, 5, and 15 tons, was cut, moved, and placed with a precision that defies the tools we attribute to ancient Egypt: copper chisels, wooden sleds, and human sweat. The base is level to within 2.1 centimeters across its massive 230-meter span, aligned to true north to within degrees. Modern engineers, armed with lasers and GPS, struggle to match such feats. Yet we are told this was the work of a 4th dynasty pharaoh, Khufu, around 2580 BC, a king whose name appears only once in the entire structure, scrawled in red paint on a hidden beam. But the true language of the pyramid is not in its silence or its single cartouche. It is in its measurements, its proportions, its alignments, a code written in stone that speaks of a knowledge far beyond what we think the Egyptians possessed. Let's start with the numbers. The base of the Great Pyramid measures approximately 230.4 meters on each side, forming a near-perfect square. Its original height, before the apex was lost, was 146.6 meters. Divide the pyramid's 921.6 meters of perimeter by the height, and you get 6.2857, a number so close to 2 pi that the difference is less than 0.1%. This is not a crude approximation, the kind you might find by trial and error. This is deliberate, precise, a mathematical constant encoded in the pyramid's very shape. Pi, the ratio of the circumference to the diameter of a circle, was not formally defined until centuries later, yet here it is, etched in limestone on a scale that dwarfs human ambition. But the code goes further. The pyramid's slope, about 51.84 degrees, embeds another universal constant, the golden ratio, phi, approximately 1.6118. When you compare half the length of the base to the height, the proportions align with phi, a number revered across cultures for its aesthetic and mathematical harmony. These are not coincidences. The probability of a single structure encoding both pi and phi by accident is vanishingly small. But the Great Pyramid doesn't stop there. Its dimensions seem to know the Earth itself. Multiply the height, 146.6 meters by 43,200, and you get 6,356,400 meters, an eerily close match to Earth's polar radius with an accuracy of 99.7%. Multiply the perimeter of the base, 921.6 meters, by the same factor, and you get 39,931,200 meters, a figure that approximates the Earth's equatorial circumference with similar precision. Why 43,200? It's not arbitrary. It's tied to the precession of the equinoxes, the slow wobble of the Earth's axis that completes a cycle every 25,920 years. Divide that cycle by 600, and you get 43,200, a scale factor that unites the pyramid's measurements with the planet's dimensions. This suggests a knowledge of astronomy and geometry that should have been impossible for a civilization without telescopes, calculus, or a concept of a spherical Earth. The pyramid's internal structure deepens the mystery. The so-called King's Chamber, a granite box at the heart of the monument, is built from blocks brought from quarries hundreds of miles away, fitted together with a precision that modern masons envy. The chamber's acoustic properties are extraordinary. Sounds resonate in ways that suggest intentional design, as if the space were meant to amplify specific frequencies. The air shafts, narrow channels that extend from the chamber to the exterior of the pyramid, are aligned with celestial precision. The south shaft points to Orion's belt, the north to the North Star, not as they appear today, but as they were positioned around 2450 BC. This is not simple stargazing. Achieving such alignments requires instruments capable of measuring fractions of degrees, an understanding of stellar motion, and the ability to calculate three-dimensional relationships between Earth and the heavens. There is no evidence of such tools or knowledge in the Egyptian record, yet the pyramid stands as proof that someone, somewhere, possessed them. Who could have known these things? The Egyptians of the 4th dynasty were masters of practical mathematics, geometry for land surveys, arithmetic for trade, but nothing in their surviving texts suggests they understood pi, phi, or planetary dimensions. Their astronomy was sophisticated, tied to the Nile floods and religious rituals, but not at the level of calculating precession or stellar alignments over millennia. The Great Pyramid feels like a singularity, a peak of knowledge that appeared fully formed and was never replicated. Later pyramids, like those of Khafra and Menkaure, lack the same mathematical precision. Their slopes are less refined, their alignments approximate, their construction often compromised. The bent pyramid of Seneferu, built only decades earlier, had to be adjusted mid-construction to prevent collapse. If the Great Pyramid was the culmination of centuries of experience, why did that experience fade so quickly? Why do subsequent monuments show decline rather than evolution? This leads us to a bolder hypothesis. What if the Great Pyramid wasn't built by the Egyptians, but inherited by them? What if it was a relic of a lost civilization, one that encoded its understanding of the universe in stone to survive a catastrophe they knew was coming? The idea of a time machine isn't science fiction here. It's a metaphor for a structure designed to preserve knowledge through the collapse of empires, the loss of languages, the forgetting of entire worlds. Mathematical constants like pi and phi are universal, unchanging, regardless of culture or time. Unlike hieroglyphics, which require a Rosetta Stone to decipher, or papyrus, which disintegrates into dust, geometry endures. By embedding these proportions in the pyramid's dimensions, its builders created a message that could be understood by any civilization advanced enough to measure it. This concept of preserving knowledge is not unique to Giza. Throughout the ancient world, we find echoes of a similar intention. Stonehenge in England, built around 2500 BC, aligns with the solstices, encoding astronomical cycles in its stones. The massive trilithons at Baalbek in Lebanon, some weighing more than 800 tons, suggest engineering capabilities that defy explanation. The submerged structures at Yonaguni, possibly 10,000 years old, hint at a culture that vanished beneath rising sea levels. These sites, like the Great Pyramid, seem designed to outlive their creators, to speak across millennia, not with words, but with scale and precision. The Great Pyramid, with its mathematical codes, could be a time capsule, a repository of truths destined for a future that had forgotten how to calculate them. But why hide such knowledge from view? Why build a monument so massive, so lasting, yet leave no name, no inscription, no claim to glory? Egyptian pharaohs weren't shy about their accomplishments. Their tombs, temples, and statues are covered in cartouches, hymns, and scenes of divine favor. The Great Pyramid, by contrast, is silent. Its only mark, a faint cartouche of Khufu's name, found in an inaccessible chamber above the king's chamber, feels like an afterthought, a whisper rather than a shout. Some even question its authenticity, pointing out that the explorer Howard Vyse, who discovered it in 1837, was under pressure to link the pyramid to a pharaoh. But even if genuine, a single name doesn't explain the absence of everything else. No prayers, no maps of the afterlife, no rituals carved into the stone. This silence suggests a purpose beyond Egyptian religion, beyond the needs of a single king. This is where the shadows deepen. Some researchers propose that the Great Pyramid was never a tomb at all. There is no mummy, no grave goods, no sarcophagus lid, just an empty granite box in the king's chamber, too simple to be a pharaoh's coffin. The chamber's design, with its precise proportions and acoustic resonance, hints at a function we don't understand. Could it be a chamber for preserving frequencies, for aligning with cosmic forces, for anchoring something intangible but essential? The air shafts, too narrow for human passage, point to the stars with a precision that suggests more than symbolic intent. Perhaps the pyramid was a tool, a device built to interact with the universe in ways we are only now beginning to explore. Through resonance, through alignment, through the mathematics that governs reality itself. And then there's the whisper of something stranger. In the 1960s, Swiss author Erich von Däniken suggested that ancient monuments like the Great Pyramid might be the work of extraterrestrial visitors, beings who shared advanced knowledge with early humans. The idea sounds far-fetched, but consider the anomalies. A structure aligned to true north with near-perfect precision, dimensions that encode Earth measurements, and a level of engineering that pushes the limits of copper tools and human labor. Could the pyramid be a beacon, a marker left by a civilization not of this world, or one that worked with knowledge we've lost? The absence of inscriptions might support this. Why write in one language when your message is intended for those who speak the universal language of mathematics? This brings us to a chilling possibility. What if the Great Pyramid was built to survive a catastrophe, not just a flood or a drought, but a collapse of civilization itself? The cycle of precession, encoded in its scale factor, suggests a scale that extends beyond human memory. The pyramid's resilience, surviving earthquakes, invasions, and 4,500 years of time, implies a design meant for geological epochs, not just dynasties. Its silence, its lack of cultural markers, makes it universal. A message not for the Egyptians, not for their gods, but for whoever comes next. A civilization recovering from ruin, rediscovering the stars, would find in the pyramid's proportions a kind of curriculum, a lesson in pi phi and Earth's place in the cosmos. As we linger on this thought, the pyramid becomes more than stone. It becomes a question, a challenge, a warning. It asks us not what we know, but what we are willing to admit we don't know. The mathematical codes are there, undeniable, carved in measurements that have outlasted empires. They speak of a people who knew the shape of the earth, the rhythm of the sky, the constants that bind the universe together. Were they the Egyptians, borrowing knowledge from a forgotten source? Were they a lost civilization, erased by time or by design? Or were they something else entirely, leaving a legacy we are not yet ready to reclaim? If these questions pique your curiosity, subscribe, for the pyramid's secrets are far from exhausted, and the night is still young. The Great Pyramid stands, not as a tomb for a king, but as a time machine for knowledge, a structure that holds truths too vast to be spoken, too enduring to be forgotten. Its proportions are a language that needs no translation, its alignments a map that needs no key. As you step into the dream, imagine being in the king's chamber, surrounded by granite that hums with secrets. The silence is thick, the air heavy, the stones waiting. They don't tell you who built them. They don't tell you why. They ask you only to measure, to question, to listen to the numbers that have been true since the stars began to burn. And in that silence, perhaps you hear the echo of a world we have forgotten, a world that built a machine to ensure we would remember it again. We step into the heart of the Great Pyramid, into chambers of granite and limestone that hold no body, no treasure, no history, only silence. We've been told is the tomb of Khufu, a monument to a king's eternal glory. But what if it's not a tomb at all? What if this enigmatic colossus, built with impossible precision, was never meant to house the remains of a pharaoh, but to serve a purpose we can't yet fathom? Lie back, let the desert darkness envelop you, and listen as we unravel the mystery of what the Great Pyramid could really be. Inside, the structure is a labyrinth of passages and chambers, each more enigmatic than the last. The descending passage delves into the bedrock, leading to an unfinished subterranean chamber. The ascending passage ascends to the grand gallery, an imposing corridor of polished stone, and beyond lies the king's chamber, a granite heart containing a single empty stone box. This, we are told, is the sarcophagus of Khufu, the pharaoh who built this marvel around 2580 BC. But the more you look, the less it feels like a tomb, and the more it feels like something else entirely. In ancient Egypt, death was not an end but a journey, meticulously planned and lavishly documented. Tombs were not mere burial sites. They were gateways to eternity, adorned with hieroglyphics, spells, and scenes from the afterlife. The Book of the Dead, the pyramid texts, and countless other inscriptions guided the soul through the underworld, naming gods, mapping challenges, and ensuring immortality. Pharaohs filled their resting places with treasures, canopic jars, Shabti figurines, and offerings of food and wine. Even lesser nobles had tombs painted with the vibrant murals of daily life. Farming, music, feasts destined to continue forever. The Valley of the Kings is a library of such stories, its walls screaming the names and deeds of the dead. But the Great Pyramid is silent. There are no hieroglyphics adorning its chambers, no paintings depicting the gods, no spells pointing the way to the afterlife. Only stone, angles, and a void where a king's legacy should be. The king's chamber, at the core of the pyramid, is a marvel of construction. Its walls, made of enormous granite blocks brought from Aswan, 800 kilometers away, are so tightly fitted that a series of granite beams distributes the weight of millions of tons across the top, stable for more than 4,500 years. Inside lies a rectangular granite box, often called a sarcophagus, but unlike any other in Egypt, it has no lid, no carvings, and no traces of mummification oils or resins. It is too small to contain the nested coffins typical of royal burials, too simple for the grandeur of a pharaoh. No body, grave goods, or fragments of ritual objects were ever found. Compare it to the tomb of Tutankhamun, overflowing with gold, chariots, and sacred texts, or even the modest burials of lesser nobles, replete with personal relics. The Great Pyramid, supposedly the largest tomb of all, offers nothing but emptiness. Some argue that it was looted in ancient times, its treasures stolen, its inscriptions erased, but this theory crumbles under scrutiny. The passages show no signs of forced entry, no chisel marks, no broken seals, no scattered debris from a hasty burglary. Tomb robbers in ancient Egypt were not subtle. They left behind broken pottery, smashed furniture, and torch soot. Here, there is nothing. No residue, no fragments, not even dust, to suggest a burial was disturbed. The box itself, cold and unadorned, shows no wear from a lid having been opened or a body removed. To believe it was looted, you would have to imagine thieves so meticulous that they erased all traces, leaving the chamber as pristine as the day it was sealed. That's not theft, it's suppression, and it feels all too deliberate. Others suggest that the Great Pyramid was an early prototype, built before the tradition of decorating tombs took hold, but this idea falters in the face of evidence of its sophistication. The Great Pyramid is no primitive experiment. Its geometry is impeccable, its alignment with true north unmatched, its internal layout a masterpiece of engineering. The Grand Gallery, with its vaulted ceiling, is a structural marvel, distributing weight with a precision that later pyramids could not replicate. The air shafts, extending from the king's chamber, align with stars like Orion's belt, suggesting a cosmological purpose. Later pyramids, such as those of Khafra or Menkaure, are smaller, less precise, and sometimes structurally unsound. The bent pyramid of Seneferu, built earlier, nearly collapsed until its angle was adjusted mid-construction. In any case, the Great Pyramid is the pinnacle, not the beginning, of an art form that has never been equaled again. So, if it's not a tomb, what is it? The absence of evidence of burials invites us to reconsider its purpose. The king's chamber, with its strange acoustic properties, offers a clue. The sounds within it, the whispers, the voices, resonate in ways that seem ingenious, as if the space were designed to amplify specific frequencies. Researchers have measured the chamber's dimensions and found that they correspond to harmonic proportions, creating echoes that linger unnaturally. Some propose that it was a resonating chamber, built to harness sound or energy for a ritual or scientific purpose we don't understand. The granite, denser than the surrounding limestone, enhances this effect, vibrating in response to certain tones. Could the pyramid have been a tool for interacting with forces beyond the physical, vibrational, cosmic, or even spiritual? The structure's astronomical alignments deepen the mystery. The air shafts, too narrow for ventilation, point to specific stars, Orion's belt in the south and North Star in the north, as they appeared around 2450 BC. This precision suggests an advanced understanding of celestial mechanics, far beyond the practical astronomy of the Egyptians, who tracked the Nile floods, but left no record of such calculations. Orienting the pyramid to true north, to a fraction of a degree of accuracy, requires knowledge of Earth's axis and magnetic field, concepts not documented in ancient texts. Some researchers speculate that it was an observatory, a monument designed to map the heavens, perhaps to align human activity with cosmic cycles. But why build it on such a massive scale, with such durable materials, if only for observation? A bolder idea emerges. What if the Great Pyramid was a machine, not of metal or wires, but of stone and intention? Some theorists, inspired by figures like Nikola Tesla, suggest it was designed to generate or channel energy, perhaps electromagnetic or acoustic, using principles we are only beginning to rediscover. The quartz-rich granite of the king's chamber could act as a conductor or resonator, amplifying natural energies. The pyramid's shape, with its precise angles, could concentrate these forces, creating a field effect we can't yet measure. 20th century experiments found that small-scale models of pyramids could preserve organic matter or sharpen blades, hinting at properties tied to their geometry. While these claims are debated, they fuel speculation that the Great Pyramid was a technology, its purpose lost when its builders vanished. Then there is the shadow of an even stranger possibility. The pyramid's scale, precision, and silence have led some to wonder if it was built with help from beyond Earth. Erich von Däniken, in his controversial book, Chariots of the Gods, proposed that extraterrestrial beings might have guided ancient architects, sharing knowledge of mathematics and engineering. The anomalies of the Great Pyramid, its alignment, its weight distribution, its lack of cultural markers, fit this narrative. Why else would a civilization build something so vast, yet leave no name, no history? Could it be a beacon, a signpost to the stars, or a gift from visitors who knew their time on Earth was fleeting? This idea defies belief, but the pyramid's very existence defies what we think is possible. More grounded, though no less profound, is the theory that the pyramid was a repository not of bodies or treasure, but of knowledge. Its silence, its lack of inscriptions, could be intentional, designed to speak to any civilization, in any era, through the universal language of geometry. Unlike papyrus or hieroglyphics, which decay or become illegible, stone endures. The pyramid's proportions, encoding pi and phi, are a message that transcends language, culture, or time. It could be a safeguard against a catastrophe, a flood, a collapse, a forgetting that erases all else. By building something that could survive millennia, its creators ensured that future generations would find not the name of a king, but a blueprint of the cosmos, a reminder of what was known and lost. This brings us to the heart of the enigma. The Great Pyramid does not behave like a tomb. It does not serve the rituals of Egyptian religion. It does not glorify a pharaoh or his gods. It stands apart, a structure that feels alien to the culture that claims it. Its only inscription, the faint cartouche of Khufu, is a whisper on a monument that roars with presence. If it was built for a king, why is it so empty? If it was built for the gods, why is it so silent? If it was built for us, what are we supposed to learn? The pyramid does not respond. It only watches, its stones holding secrets that refuse to yield. If this mystery has you questioning the stories we've been told, subscribe, because the sands of Giza hold more shadows to explore. As you drift into the dream, imagine yourselves in the king's chamber, surrounded by granite that hums with ancient intent. The air is thick, the silence alive, the stones pressing with the weight of unspoken questions. The Great Pyramid is not a tomb, not a temple, but a presence, a machine, a map, a memory. It was built to outlive the world that created it, to speak to those who come after, not with words, but in the language of angles and echoes. Whoever built it, whatever their intention, left us a challenge, to look beyond the stories, to listen to the silence, and wonder what truth lies in the space where a king should be, but isn't. We descend beneath the Giza Plateau, into a world of hidden chambers and forgotten passages, where the earth itself holds secrets older than the monuments above ground. What lies beneath the pyramids and the Sphinx? A network of tunnels, voids, and chambers that hint at a purpose far beyond a tomb, a purpose that someone, somewhere, has worked hard to keep hidden. Lie back, let the desert silence envelop you, and follow me into the shadows beneath Giza. The Giza Plateau is more than a collection of stone giants under the sun. Beneath its surface lies a labyrinth, a subterranean realm that defies everything we've been taught about ancient Egypt. For more than a century, explorers have reported strange discoveries beneath the pyramids and the Sphinx. Cavities too regular to be natural, passages too precise to be mere tomb shafts, chambers that seem to belong to a design we can't yet name. These findings, documented in dusty journals and half-forgotten maps, paint a picture of a hollow plateau, a network of intentionally carved spaces hidden from the world above. Yet every time these discoveries come to light, they disappear just as quickly, sealed, discarded, or denied. The question is not just what lies beneath Giza, but why we aren't allowed to know. One of the most well-documented underground features is the Well of Osiris, located near the causeway of Khafra's pyramid. This vertical tunnel plunges more than 30 meters into the limestone rock, a descent that feels more like a journey to another world than a simple tomb. The shaft is divided into 3 levels, each more mysterious than the last. The top chamber is small, accessible only by a narrow passage that requires specialized equipment to navigate. The second level is flooded with groundwater, a murky barrier that has thwarted thorough exploration but preserved what lies below. The third level, the deepest of all, opens into a large room with 6 side niches, carved with a precision that rivals the stonework of the upper pyramids. At its center is a stone box, often called a sarcophagus, but it tells a different story. There are no stains of decay, no traces of mummification, and no sign that it once contained a body. The chamber's smooth, unadorned walls bear such consistent tool marks that they suggest a single skilled team at work. The acoustics are eerie, whispers are clearly audible, while louder sounds seem muffled, as if the space had been designed to shape sound itself. This is no ordinary tomb. Egyptian burials, even for lesser nobles, were filled with inscriptions, offerings, and relics to guide the soul. The Well of Osiris has none of these, only silence, precision, and a purpose we cannot name. Some call it a symbolic tomb for Osiris, the god of the underworld, linked to later dynasties. But its depth, its craftsmanship, and its emptiness feel older, stranger, as if it belongs to a time before the birth of Egypt's gods. The well is closed to the public, rarely studied, and barely mentioned in official records. Why? If it is just an empty chamber, why the secrecy? The answer lies not in what it contains, but in what it suggests about the hidden depths of the plateau. The Osiris Pit is just one piece of a larger puzzle. In the 19th century, early explorers like Ernest Alfred Wallace Budge described subterranean chambers beneath Giza, extending far beyond what a tomb would require. Budge, a British Egyptologist, wrote of passages and cavities that felt too deliberate to be natural, too extensive to serve a single burial. During Napoleon's 1798 expedition, scholars mapped a network of subterranean spaces, corridors, stairways, and rooms connecting the pyramids and the Sphinx in ways that hinted at a coordinated design. These maps, drawn before modern tourism altered the site, show features that no longer appear on official plans. Some passages were filled with rubble, as if deliberately sealed. Others were clean, as if maintained long after their creation. These detailed and accurate reports were dismissed as exaggerations by colonial adventurers who didn't understand what they were seeing, but the maps still exist, hidden in archives, whispering of a Giza we weren't meant to explore. In 1926, Herbert Eustace Winlock, an American archaeologist, wrote about catacombs beneath the plateau. Chambers with carved walls, stairways descending deeper than any tomb required, and passages that followed geometric patterns rather than the irregular layout of natural caves. These descriptions suggest more than just burial sites, an infrastructure, a foundation for a purpose we can't yet grasp. Yet no museum displays models of these spaces. No textbook teaches their existence. Academia labels them as fissures, unfinished shafts, or mistakes by early explorers. But the consistency of these accounts over decades, across cultures, makes the dismissal feel less like science and more like suppression. The most compelling evidence came in 2008, when Egyptian researchers used ground-penetrating radar to map the subsurface of the Giza Plateau. Their scans revealed a network of voids, tunnels, and chambers extending beneath the pyramids and the Sphinx. Some matched old maps from Napoleon's team, confirming that the early explorers had seen real structures, not illusions. Others were entirely new, large geometric cavities that could not be explained by natural erosion. Beneath the Sphinx, they found regularly shaped spaces, suggesting artificial construction. Beneath the Great Pyramid, they detected chambers disconnected from known passages, hinting at a separate, older construction phase. Photographs from these surveys, though rare, show carved stone, crude steps, and arches in the darkness, features that do not match the roughly cut Egyptian tomb shafts or the polished masonry of the pyramids above. These discoveries pointed to a complex underground network, one that predates or exists apart from the monuments we see. And then, the gates closed. Egyptian authorities, through the Supreme Council of Antiquities, declared, "There is nothing there." No explanation for the photographs, no acknowledgement of the radar data, no reference to historical maps. Access was revoked. The findings were buried in bureaucratic silence. Journalists who sought answers were met with blank denials. Documented, measured, and even explored tunnels were sealed again. This is not an isolated incident. In the 1930s, an excavation beneath the Sphinx supposedly uncovered a chamber between its legs, described by workers as artificially constructed. It was quickly filled in, and no official report was published. Later, radar scans confirmed a hollow space in the same location. However, independent researchers were prohibited from investigating. The official position remains unshaken. Nothing of importance lies beneath Giza, but when evidence is photographed, mapped, and then declared irrelevant, that's not archaeology, it's suppression. This pattern of concealment raises a troubling question. What lies beneath Giza that is so threatening? It must be hidden. The subterranean network suggests a purpose beyond the tombs, perhaps a foundation for the entire plateau built before the pyramids rose. The acoustics of the shaft of Osiris, the geometric precision of the mapped voids, and the clean cuts of the buried passages point to an infrastructure, an engineering system designed for a function we don't understand. Some speculate it was a ritual space meant to amplify sound or energy, like the resonating chambers at ancient sites like the Hypogeum of Malta, where sound frequencies induce trance states. Others propose it was a storage system, not for treasure, but for knowledge, like the mythical Hall of Records described by Edgar Cayce, said to hold the secrets of a lost civilization. The most disturbing possibility is that these chambers predate the pharaohs entirely. If the Sphinx, with its water erosion, dates back 7,000 years, could this network belong to the same builders, a civilization that reshaped bedrock, carving out spaces to withstand a catastrophe they foresaw? Construction techniques, movable walls, precise angles, don't always match Egyptian methods. Some tool marks suggest tools or methods unknown to the Old Kingdom, hinting at a technology lost to history. The flooded second level of the Well of Osiris, preserved by water, might hold clues untouched by time, yet it remains inaccessible, its secrets drowned in silence. This brings us to a darker truth. The suppression of these discoveries seems deliberate, as if the underground network threatens the narrative of Egyptian history. If Giza was built on an older foundation, if its chambers were carved by a people who predate the pharaohs, it alters the chronology of human civilization. It suggests that the Egyptians were not the creators of their greatest wonders, but inheritors, claiming a legacy they could not replicate. The authorities' refusal to explore further, their quick dismissal of the evidence, reflects a pattern seen elsewhere. Texts lost in fires, inscriptions destroyed in earthquakes, discoveries silenced by institutional power. Why? What could be so dangerous about a few tunnels and chambers? Perhaps it's not the spaces themselves, but what they represent. A chapter of history we are not ready to read. A civilization we are not meant to remember. As you drift into the dream, imagine yourself descending into the well of Osiris, the stone cold beneath your touch, the air thick with the weight of centuries. The chambers beneath Giza are not just voids, they are questions, carved into the bedrock waiting for answers. They speak of a time before kings, before gods, when the plateau was shaped with a purpose we can only guess at. The network beneath the pyramids is a map of the forgotten, a labyrinth where memory itself lies buried, waiting for someone brave enough to follow its ways. In 1993, a small, wheeled robot named Upuaut, meaning opener of ways, after an ancient Egyptian god, made history. Built by the German engineer Rudolf Gantenbrink, it was sent into the Great Pyramid to inspect its narrow air shafts, passages far too small for humans to enter. These shafts, which extended from the Queen's chamber, were long thought to be symbolic, perhaps aligned with stars or intended for the pharaoh's soul to ascend. They slope upward at steep angles, barely 20 centimeters wide, their walls polished to a smoothness that defies ancient tools. Gantenbrink's mission was practical, to improve ventilation and map the shafts. But what Upuotu found was anything but routine. As he ascended the southern shaft, more than 60 meters long, his camera transmitted images that astonished the world. A perfectly fitted stone door with 2 copper bolts protruding like silent sentinels. This wasn't a collapse, nor the abrupt end of a passage, but a deliberate barrier, sealed for millennia, concealing something the pyramid's builders didn't want revealed. The images were hypnotic. The walls of the shafts, untouched by time, gleamed with precision. Their limestone blocks were joined so firmly that no mortar was needed. The angles never deviated. The surfaces showed no tool marks, as if carved with an inexplicable method. In the end, the door appeared as a smooth rectangular slab, its copper pins gleaming in the robot's light. These pins weren't hinges or handles. They were too small and awkwardly positioned for any mechanical purpose. Were they symbolic, markers of a sacred boundary, or something else entirely? The discovery shocked the archaeological community. Here was evidence of hidden spaces within the pyramid, spaces sealed since its creation, which challenged the idea that every chamber had been mapped. The world watched, stunned, as headlines proclaimed a new age of exploration. Could this door lead to a lost chamber, a repository of ancient knowledge, or something even stranger? But the excitement was short-lived. Gantenbrink's contract was abruptly terminated by Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities. His access to the pyramid was revoked, and his research halted without explanation. The official reason was that he had exceeded his mandate, which was limited to ventilation, not exploration. However, the door was found during a legitimate inspection of the shaft, and halting the research at the time of its discovery felt more like simple bureaucracy. It felt like repression. The media frenzy faded, and the door remained sealed, its secrets unrevealed. Why? What could be hidden behind a stone slab that would justify such a swift silencing? The question lingered, unanswered, for almost a decade. In 2002, a new team was authorized to enter, armed with a more advanced robot, the Pyramid Rover, equipped with cameras, drills, and fiber optic technology. The world tuned in again, waiting for answers after years of silence. Live feeds promised to reveal what lay behind the mysterious door. The robot navigated the same southern shaft, its cameras capturing the same immaculate masonry until it reached the door with its copper pins. With painstaking care, he drilled a small hole into the slab, a process that revealed the incredible hardness of the stone, as if designed to resist intrusion. A fiber optic camera was inserted, and the world held its breath, waiting for treasures, inscriptions, or a glimpse into the heart of the pyramid. What the camera revealed was another empty chamber, precise and silent, with a second stone door in the far wall. No hieroglyphs or artifacts, just more stone, more mystery, and another barrier. This discovery only deepened the enigma. Why build a shaft too narrow for humans, leading to a sealed door, only to hide another door behind it? The chamber's walls were as smooth as the shafts, their construction as meticulous, suggesting a purpose beyond decoration or ritual. The copper pins, hammered flat, seemed to mark the first door as significant, perhaps a warning or a symbol of something sacred. But the second door, identical in its silence, hinted at a design meant to delay, confuse, protect something that must not be reached. The transmission ended, the press cycle faded, and no further expeditions were launched. The second door remains closed, its secrets locked away, and the official narrative has reverted to silence. Some claim the mystery has been solved, that the shafts were symbolic, that the doors were meaningless, that the chamber was empty. But emptiness is not absence. It is a choice, a design, an immutable declaration. The implications are profound. The shafts and doorways suggest that the Great Pyramid hides previously unseen spaces, constructed with a precision that defies our understanding of ancient technology. The shafts maintain exact alignments for 60 meters, their angles never deviating, and their surfaces flawless. This is not the work of rudimentary tools or hasty construction, but the product of a vision that planned every detail. The copper pins, made of a metal sacred to Egyptian religion, add an additional layer. Copper, associated with the gods and divine power, was scarce and difficult to work with in ancient times. Why place it in a passage that no one could access? Some speculate that the pins are markers, not to open the door, but to signal its important boundary that must not be crossed, a secret that must not be revealed. This leads us to a bold hypothesis. The doors could lead to the legendary Hall of Records, a chamber described by the mystic Edgar Cayce in the early 20th century. Cayce claimed that beneath the Sphinx and within the pyramid lies a repository of knowledge from a lost civilization, possibly Atlantis, containing texts, tools, or even technologies that could rewrite history. Radar anomalies beneath the Sphinx, detected in the 1980s and 2000s, support the idea of hidden spaces, and the pyramid's shafts could connect to this network. The doors, so carefully sealed, could protect this archive, meant only for a time or a people equipped to understand it. Copper pins, a symbol of divine connection, could mark the threshold of this sacred knowledge, a testament to wisdom rather than strength. But why halt exploration? The silencing of Gantenbrink and the halt after the pyramid explorer's discovery suggest more than caution, but fear. Egyptian authorities, backed by institutions like the Supreme Council of Antiquities, have systematically blocked access to sensitive sites. Is it about preserving monuments or preserving a narrative? If the doors lead to evidence of a pre-Egyptian civilization, with advanced technology or knowledge, it would decipher human chronology. The pyramid, attributed to Khufu, would become an older world, and the foundations of Egyptology would crumble. This threat could explain the pattern of sealed denial tunnels, discarded radar data, and rejected researchers. It's as if the truth behind the doors is too dangerous to face. This pattern isn't unique to Giza. In Mesoamerica, excavations at Teotihuacan uncovered tunnels beneath the Pyramid of the Sun, sealed for centuries, but whose exploration was limited by official restrictions. In Turkey, the ancient site of Göbekli Tepe, dating back 12,000 years, suffered delays in study because its implications for early civilization were too disruptive to be quickly grasped. The doors of the Great Pyramid fit this mold. Discoveries that question the history of human progress are met with silence, not science. Could there be a global effort, ancient or modern, to keep certain truths hidden? Some even hint at extraterrestrial involvement, suggesting that the pyramid's precision and hidden chambers point to alien architects, a theory popularized by Erich von Däniken. Although speculative, it underscores the question, why build something so complex, so inaccessible, unless it was intended to remain a mystery? Imagine Cairo at the end of the 19th century, a city in the throes of discovery. European collectors, scholars, and adventurers scoured Egypt's markets and monasteries, eager for relics of its ancient past. The 19th century was the golden age of Egyptomania, when every artifact, every papyrus, promised to unlock the secrets of a civilization that had captivated the world. In a quiet Coptic monastery, tucked away from the bustle of Cairo's streets, a collector, perhaps Austrian, perhaps French, met an elderly monk, guardian of a small bundle of manuscripts. These were no ordinary texts. For centuries, Coptic monasteries had been sanctuaries of knowledge, preserving fragments of early Christian and pre-Islamic writings through wars, invasions, and the relentless passage of time. The monk claimed his collection housed treasures passed down through generations, texts that had survived the fall of empires, copied again and again by hands that revered their weight. Among these manuscripts was one scroll that stood out. Written in Sahidic Coptic, a dialect from early Christian Egypt, it was riddled with ancient phrases the monk couldn't read, hints of a language that predated even Coptic. The scroll's contents, as described to the collector, were astonishing. It spoke of a land on the banks of the Nile before its modern course, before the river's great bend, before the formation of the delta. It described 3 great stone beacons that were not identified as pyramids, but as structures aligned with the stars, sealed not as tombs, but as vaults of memory. The text described them as ancient, built before language, before the Nile changed its course, before the kings of Egypt rose to power. When the collector pressed for meaning, the monk's words proved cryptic. They were built before words, before the river knew its place. It wasn't a myth of pharaohs or gods, but a glimpse into a time before history as we know it. The collector acquired the scroll, along with others, and took it to Europe, where Orientalist scholars waited to decipher its secrets. The 19th century was a time of painstaking study, with universities and museums investing heavily in the translation of ancient texts. Linguists would have pored over the Coptic script, historians would have compared it with known sources, and archaeologists would have matched its descriptions to the physical sites. The scroll promised to be a kind of Rosetta Stone, the key to a chapter of human history we have never read. Its mention of the pyramids as beacons and vaults of memory suggested that they were not tombs, but something more, perhaps repositories of knowledge, built to survive a catastrophe that erased their creators. If true, this text could have upended the chronology of Egyptian civilization, placing the pyramids in a prehistoric era, linked to a people we have never named. But before a single word could be translated, tragedy struck, we are told. The details are desperately vague. Some accounts claim that a fire consumed the collector's private study, reducing the scroll to ashes. Others claim the manuscript was in an archive, perhaps in Vienna or Lyon. The uncertainty itself is suspicious, as if the story were destined to fade into oblivion. What we do know is this: the parchment was lost, along with much of the collector's collection, in a fire that left no copies, photographs, or detailed notes. This was not a common loss. In the 19th century, scholars understood the fragility of ancient texts. Important manuscripts were routinely copied, drafted, or described to prevent such disasters. The Nag Hammadi Library, another Coptic treasure, survived thanks to such care. However, this scroll, arguably the most significant find of its time, vanished without a trace, leaving only a second-hand letter quoting the monk's cryptic words about the Nile and the beacons. This disappearance seems all too timely, all too convenient. A text that could have placed the pyramids before language, before Egypt, was destroyed just as it reached the hands of those who could read it. The letter, the only surviving reference, offers no details beyond the monk's statement, as if the scroll's very existence were a whisper, not a shout. Historians dismiss the story as a misunderstanding, suggesting that the scroll, if it existed, was a late Gnostic fable, a symbolic narrative of Egypt's mythic past. They point to the 19th century trade in fake relics, where locals sold forged artifacts to eager Europeans. But this explanation seems like a stopgap measure, a way to hide an uncomfortable possibility. If the scroll was a fake, why destroy it before its authenticity could be verified? Why ensure that no scholar, no linguist, could ever examine its words? The loss of the scroll fits a disturbing pattern. Throughout history, texts that challenge established narratives often disappear. In the 18th century, French scholars reported an inscription near Aswan listing kings before Minis, Egypt's supposed first pharaoh. It could have extended Egypt's chronology by thousands of years, but the wall collapsed in an earthquake. Its rubbings were lost, and the site was never re-excavated. In the early 20th century, a German linguist claimed to have translated a Nubian papyrus mentioning resonating stones west of the Nile, only to die in World War I, his notes scattered. Each incident, on its own, seems a misfortune. Together, they suggest a design, an invisible hand ensuring that certain truths never survive long enough to be heard. The Coptic scroll, with its mention of pyramids rather than language, fits this mold perfectly. It wasn't lost to the passage of time, but to a fire that burned just at the moment when it might have expressed too much. What makes the scroll so evocative is what it might have said. If he described the pyramids as memory vaults, built before the modern course of the Nile, it fits with other clues we've discovered. Water erosion of the Sphinx points to a time 7,000 years ago, when rain fell on a verdant Sahara. The Great Pyramid's mathematical codes suggest knowledge of Earth's dimensions and cosmic cycles. The underground network beneath Giza suggests an infrastructure older than the pharaohs. The scroll could have tied these threads together, naming a civilization that built the wonders of Giza before Egypt existed, a civilization that sealed its knowledge in stone, aware that its world was fading. The monk's words, before the Nile changed, are particularly chilling. Geological records confirm that the Nile shifted over millennia, forming its delta around 4000 BC. If the scroll dates the pyramids to this earlier era, it would place them in a prehistoric world, challenging our understanding of human progress. This brings us to a more complex question. Who had the power to destroy such a text, and why? The fire was not an act of war or conquest. Like the burning of the Library of Alexandria or the destruction of the Mayan codices by the Spanish conquistadors, it occurred in peacetime, in the hands of a collector who had every reason to preserve it. Was it an accident, or was it erased to protect a narrative? If the scroll proved that the pyramids predated Egypt, it would unravel the pharaonic creation myth, suggesting that the Egyptians were inheritors, not creators. It would force us to rethink the origins of monumental architecture, the spread of advanced knowledge, and the possibility of a lost civilization. Perhaps Atlantis, as Plato described it, or another culture wiped out by catastrophe. Such a truth might have been too dangerous, not for national security, but for the stories we tell ourselves about our place in history. As you fall asleep, imagine holding that fragile parchment, its ink fading at the touch, its words hinting at a world before words. The Coptic scroll is gone, but its absence speaks louder than its text. It is a reminder that some truths are too vast to be kept, too fragile to survive the flames of time or the hands that illuminate them. The scroll burned, but its echo endures, a whisper of a time when pyramids preceded kings, language, and the Nile, waiting for us to remember what should never have been forgotten. The Giza Plateau is a monument to human ingenuity, or so we're told. The Great Pyramid, the Sphinx, and the Temple of Sol, attributed to the 4th dynasty, are testaments to Egypt's golden age. Yet every clue we've explored points to a different story. Water erosion suggests a prehistoric origin. Mathematical codes too advanced for their time, empty chambers that defy funerary traditions, and texts like the Inventory Thief and the Dream Thief, which describe restoration, not creation. Beneath the plateau, a network of tunnels and voids hints at an older purpose, while robots discover sealed doors that no one can open. A scroll speaks of pyramids before the language vanishes in flames. Every discovery, every anomaly, is met with the same response: rejection, denial, or even complete erasure. This is no coincidence, but a pattern, a deliberate effort to control what we know about Giza, and it raises a chilling question. What truth is so dangerous that it must be hidden at all costs? The root of this concealment lies in Egyptology itself, a field based on rigorous scholarship, but also on rigid narratives. The accepted chronology places the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx in the 4th dynasty, around 2580 BC, built by Khufu and Khafra with copper tools and human labor. This story is clear, logical, and comforting. It fits with our understanding of human progress, a steady ascent from the primitive to the civilized. But when evidence challenges this chronology, it is met not with curiosity, but with resistance. The Inventory Stele, which suggests that Khufu restored the Sphinx, is held in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, rarely displayed, and dismissed as propaganda for the late 26th dynasty. The Dream Thief, which recounts the divine encounter of Thutmose IV, is dismissed as a political myth, its implications ignored. Water erosion of the Sphinx, dated to 7,000 years ago, is dismissed as the work of wind or groundwater, despite geological evidence to the contrary. Why? Why does every anomaly suffer the same fate, buried, discredited, or forgotten? This pattern of dismissal is what scholars call intellectual guarding. Egyptology, like any academic field, fervently protects its foundations. The chronology of the Old Kingdom is a cornerstone, built on decades of research, carbon dating, and artifacts like the Journal of Mera, which describes the transport of limestone for the Pyramid of Khufu. Admitting that the Giza monuments could predate Egypt, or that they were built by a lost civilization with advanced knowledge, would dismantle these foundations. It would force a rewrite not only of Egyptian history, but also of human history, suggesting that sophisticated societies existed thousands of years earlier than we thought possible. Such a change would jeopardize the careers, reputations, and authority of institutions like the Supreme Council of Antiquities, which oversees Egypt's archaeological sites. The stakes are high, not only for science, but also for power. Consider the treatment of the underground network beneath Giza. In 2008, ground-penetrating radar revealed a complex of chambers, tunnels, and voids, some of which match 19th century reports by explorers such as Wallace Budge and Napoleon's team. These spaces, with their precise cuts and geometric patterns, suggest a purpose beyond Tombson's infrastructure, perhaps for a civilization unknown to us. Yet Egyptian authorities declared nothing there. Photographs of carved passages, radar scans showing artificial cavities, and historical maps were ignored or suppressed. Access was revoked, researchers were turned away, and the findings disappeared from public discourse. This is reminiscent of earlier incidents. An excavation beneath the Sphinx in the 1930s uncovered a chamber which was filled in without prior study. Rudolf Gantenbrink's Upwat 2 rover stopped after finding a sealed door in 1993. The discovery of another door by the Pyramid rover in 2002 prevented further exploration. Each time, the door of discovery slams shut. It's not just about protecting artifacts from damage. The Supreme Council of Antiquities, backed by the Egyptian government, tightly controls access to Giza. Excavations require permits, funding, and official approval, often linked to political and economic interests. Tourism is the lifeblood of Egypt, and the narrative of Giza as a pharaonic achievement attracts millions of visitors each year. The story of a lost civilization, of pyramids that predate Egypt, could disrupt this industry, calling into question the nation's cultural heritage. But the conspiracy runs deeper. Some speculate that global institutions, such as UNESCO, which funds and regulates archaeological sites, have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo. A discovery that rewrites history could destabilize not only Egyptology, but also our understanding of human progress, challenging the linear narrative of the rise of civilization. And then there is a stranger possibility, one rumored on the fringes of speculation. Could the cover-up involve forces outside academia or government? The precision of the Great Pyramid, its alignment with Orion's belt, its encoding of mathematical constants like pi and the Fithi anomalies, have fueled theories of extraterrestrial influence, popularized by authors like Erich von Däniken. If the monuments at Giza were built with otherworldly knowledge, or if the subterranean chambers harbor evidence of advanced technology, revealing them could revolutionize more than just the history books. It could call into question our place in the cosmos, suggesting contact with beings we aren't ready to acknowledge. While this idea defies credibility, it underscores the stakes, a truth that alters our understanding of humanity's past might be too disturbing to allow to come to light. The pattern of erasure extends beyond Giza. In Mesopotamia, cuneiform tablets describing pre-flood civilizations were dismissed as myths until excavations like the 12,000-year-old Göbekli Tepe proved otherwise. In Mesoamerica, the Spanish conquistadors burned Mayan codices, thus erasing knowledge that could have rivaled European science. The Coptic scroll, which describes the pyramids before language, fits in with this decaying text that could have destroyed Egyptology, lost in a suspiciously timed fire. These incidents, spanning centuries and continents, suggest a systematic effort to control what we know about our origins. It's not about destroying all traces, but rather about managing information, ensuring that only the true story survives. The inventory thief is hidden in a museum. The underground chambers are sealed. The robots are detained. Each act is a brick in a wall of silence. This conspiracy of concealment is not just about power, but also about fear. If the monuments at Giza were built by a civilization that predates Egypt, with knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering beyond our understanding, this forces us to confront the fragility of our own history. The pharaohs, venerated as living gods, become mere guardians, their divine authority a borrowed cloak. The chronology of human progress, so carefully constructed, becomes a lie, revealing gaps where advanced societies could have risen and fallen, their achievements buried by catastrophe or design. The institutions that oversee the government of Giza, Egypt, global organizations, and even academia might fear not only the truth, but also its implications, that we are not the pinnacle of history, but a chapter in a cycle of forgetting and rediscovery. As you drift off into sleep, imagine standing before the Great Pyramid, its stones glittering under the stars, its secrets locked in chambers and scrolls we will never see. The conspiracy to conceal it is not a single act, but a shadow cast over the centuries, a refusal to let certain truths breathe. The stelae, the tunnels, the gates, the burned manuscript, all point to a Giza that belongs to a time before Egypt, a time we are supposed to be unaware of. The guardians may close the gates, but the stones still whisper, and their voices grow louder in the silence of the night, urging us to wonder what they fear we might find. We are confronting the heart of the mystery, the technology behind the Great Pyramid, a marvel of precision so advanced that it challenges everything we believe about ancient capabilities. Was it the work of copper tools and human labor, or something far beyond our understanding? Lie back, let the whisper of the desert envelop you, and listen as we explore a technology that seems to belong to another world. The internal passages, the descending passage, the Great Gallery, the King's Chamber, were constructed with such precision that the joints are invisible, the angles firm, and the stability unshaken after 500 years. This is said to have been the work of Pharaoh Khufu's fourth dynasty, around 2580 BC, using ropes, ramps, and copper chisels. But the deeper we look, the more implausible this explanation becomes. Just as if the pyramid had been built with tools and knowledge, we cannot explain tools that seem alien to the era we assign them. Consider the magnitude of the task. The Great Pyramid contains enough stone to build a wall around a small country, with blocks extracted from quarries sometimes hundreds of kilometers away. The granite in the King's Chamber, sourced from Aswan, 800 kilometers to the south, was carved with a precision that leaves no room for even a sheet of paper. Modern experiments show that copper tools, the best available to the Egyptians, had difficulty cutting limestone, let alone granite, which is among the hardest stones known. To achieve the pyramid's smooth surfaces and tight joints, workers would have needed tools of exceptional durability, perhaps made of bronze or iron, neither of which were in significant use during the Old Kingdom. The logistics are equally daunting. Moving a 15-ton block across desert terrain, lifting it hundreds of meters and positioning it with sub-millimeter precision would be a challenge for today's cranes and lasers. However, we're told this was done with sleds, rollers, and human power, guided by starlight and water levels. The precision of the pyramid's alignment raises even more questions. Its base is oriented to the cardinal points, with an error of just 0.05 degrees, a feat requiring advanced surveying techniques. Modern builders, using GPS and satellite navigation, struggle to achieve such precision at this scale. The Egyptians had no compasses or theodolites, yet they still aligned a 5-hectare structure to true north with near-perfect fidelity. The base is so flat that the 2.1 centimeter variations simplifies a mastery of topography, challenged by the uneven limestone plateau on which it sits. To prepare such a foundation, workers would have had to measure and level vast areas with tools for which we have no record, coordinating hundreds of workers with a precision rivaling that of modern engineering software. Internal passages, such as the Grand Gallery with its corbelled roof, distribute millions of tons of weight so effectively that the structure has withstood earthquakes and invasions without damage. This isn't a trial and error construction. It's the work of a mind that understood physics, geometry, and material science at a level we associate with the modern era. But it's not just the construction that's supernatural. The pyramid's design incorporates knowledge that seemed impossible for its time. The narrow, inaccessible vents to the king's chamber align with Orion's belt and the North Star as they appeared around 2450 BC, requiring an understanding of stellar motion and precession 25, a 920-year cycle in the Earth's axial wobble. The Egyptians tracked Nile flooding using stars, but no text suggests they calculated such long-term astronomical patterns. The pyramid's dimensions encode mathematical constants. The perimeter divided by the height equals 2 pi. The slope incorporates the golden ratio, phi. These proportions, accurate to fractions of a percent, suggest a mastery of advanced mathematics not documented in Egyptian records, which focused on practical geometry for measuring the Earth, not universal constants. Even more striking, multiplying the height by 43,200 approximates the Earth's polar radius, and multiplying the perimeter of the base by the same factor coincides with the equatorial circumference. This scaling factor, linked to precession, implies knowledge of the planet's shape and size, concepts that were not formalized until centuries later. This level of sophistication raises a radical question. Could the Great Pyramid be the product of a technology we've lost or never understood? The tools and methods attributed to Egyptian chisels. The wooden ramps don't explain the pyramid's precision. Some researchers propose alternative techniques, such as acoustic levitation or advanced cutting methods, although there is no direct evidence to support these ideas. Echoes of such possibilities can be found in ancient texts from other cultures. The Sumerian Enuma Elish describes gods shaping the world with tools of divine power, while Indian texts such as the Mahabharata mention devices that move stones using sound or light. Could the pyramid builders have used similar methods, lost with the disappearance of their civilization? The absence of tool marks on the pyramid stones, especially on the smooth granite of the king's chamber, suggests a technology that worked stone with a delicacy beyond chisels, perhaps abrasives, precision saws, or something we still don't know. This idea finds parallels at other ancient sites. At 5,000-year-old Stonehenge, enormous sarsen stones were moved dozens of kilometers and erected in alignment with the solstices, requiring engineering that is difficult to explain. In Peru, the stone walls of Machu Picchu, built by the Incas, feature blocks so tightly fitted that they seem to defy gravity, with no mortar or visible tool marks. The triliths at Baalbek in Lebanon, weighing up to 800 tons, were cut and placed with a precision that defies modern cranes. The most impressive is Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a 12,000-year-old complex of carved pillars, weighing about 20 tons, built before agriculture and writing. These sites, like Giza, suggest a global tradition of advanced building, knowledge that appeared suddenly and disappeared just as quickly. Could the Great Pyramid be part of this network, a remnant of a civilization that spanned continents, leaving its mark in stone before fading into oblivion? The most provocative theory goes further and suggests extraterrestrial influence. Authors like Erich von Däniken argue that the pyramid's precision, alignments, and mathematical codes point to extraterrestrial architects or advisors who shared advanced technology with early humans. The idea is marginal, but it gains strength from the pyramid's anomalies. How could a culture with no documented knowledge of calculus or astronomy achieve such feats? The lack of inscriptions, the empty chambers, the cosmic alignments, all of these could indicate a purpose not rooted in human ambition, but in a message addressed to the stars. Although speculative, this theory highlights the gap between what we see and what we can explain, forcing us to consider possibilities beyond our current understanding. A more solid hypothesis is that the pyramid was a technological marvel, designed to preserve knowledge in the face of catastrophe. Its hieroglyphs of silence, without any real pretensions, suggest a universal design, intended for any civilization capable of measuring its proportions. The constants encoded in its form, pi, phi, the dimensions of the earth, are timeless and have survived the collapse of languages and cultures. Unlike papyrus or clay tablets, stone endures, and the pyramid's resilience demonstrates that it was built for geological time, not human reigns. Could its builders have foreseen a disaster or flood, a climate change, a societal collapse, and erected a monument to safeguard their understanding? The African humid period, which ended around 4000 BC, transformed the Sahara from a verdant paradise to a desert, displacing populations. If the pyramid predates this change, as the erosion of the Sphinx suggests, it could be a beacon from a lost world, designed to guide future generations back to the truths they left behind. Imagine the Great Pyramid under a starry sky, its stones silent but full of purpose. Its technology, whether human, divine, or otherworldly, speaks with precision, not words, a language of angles and alignments that endures through empires. The builders, whoever they were, left no name, only a challenge to measure, question, and marvel at. Tonight, we delve into a legend that has haunted humanity for millennia. Atlantis, a lost civilization of unparalleled wisdom, said to have vanished in a single night. Could the monuments of Giza be its legacy, the final echo of a people wiped out by catastrophe? Relax, let the desert stillness lull you, and listen as we explore the possibility that the wonders of Giza were built by a civilization we have forgotten. The story of Atlantis begins with Plato, the Greek philosopher, who described it in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias around 360 BC. He described a powerful civilization that flourished 9,000 years before his time, located beyond the probable Strait of Gibraltar, the Strait of Hercules. Atlantis was a marvel of architecture, engineering, and culture. Its inhabitants were masters of navigation, astronomy, and technology. Their resource-rich island boasted concentric canals, grand temples, and palaces of gleaming stone. But their arrogance angered the gods, and in a single day and night, earthquakes and floods sank Atlantis into the sea, leaving no trace except a story passed down through the generations. Plato's tale, dismissed by many as allegory, has fueled speculation for centuries. Could this lost civilization hold the key to the mysteries of Giza, whose monuments are a remnant of a world that vanished long before Egypt's rise? The Great Pyramid and the Sphinx, with their anomalies, fit eerily into this narrative. The water erosion of the Sphinx, as proposed by geologist Robert Schoch, points to a time between 7,000 and 10,000 years ago, when heavy rains fell on a verdant Sahara. This coincides with Plato's chronology for Atlantis, which places its fall around 9600 BC, during the end of the African humid period, when climatic changes transformed the lush landscapes into deserts. The pyramid's mathematical codes, SBI, Phi, and the dimensions of the Earth, suggest a knowledge of astronomy and geometry far beyond what we attribute to the Fourth Dynasty. Their precision, with a base level of 2.1 diameter and a true north line accurate to within 0.005 degrees, implies a technology that tests the limits of copper tools and human labor. Could these monuments be the work of Atlantean survivors who fled their sinking homeland to build a lasting testament on the banks of the Nile? The idea isn't as far-fetched as it seems when we look beyond Egypt. Around the world, ancient sites hint at a lost chapter of human history. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, dating to 9600 BC, features enormous stone pillars, weighing about 20 tons, carved with intricate reliefs and related to celestial events. Built before agriculture and writing, it challenges our view of prehistoric societies as primitive. In Japan, the submerged Yonaguni monument off the coast exhibits terraces and angles that suggest human craftsmanship from a time when sea levels were lower, possibly 10,000 years ago. In Bolivia, the laser-cut stone blocks of Pumapunku, made with Inca tools, defy explanation. These sites, like Giza, share a distinctive hallmark. They appear suddenly, fully formed, with no clear predecessors, as if based on knowledge that disappeared with their creators. Could Atlantis, or a similar civilization, have been the source, its influence spreading across the continents before a cataclysm destroyed its essence? The Giza Plateau offers clues that fit this theory. The subterranean network beneath the pyramids and the Sphinx, mapped by radar in 2008, reveals chambers and tunnels too precise to be natural, suggesting an infrastructure older than the pharaohs. The Well of Osiris, with its empty stone box and strange acoustics, feels less like a tomb and more like a relic of an unknown purpose. The Coptic scroll, lost in the fire, spoke of stone beacons built before language, a description reminiscent of Plato's account of the grandiose architecture of Atlantis. The Star Inventory and the Star Dream present Khufu and Thutmose IV as restorers, not builders, as if the monuments at Giza were inherited from a time before Egypt. Together, these clues paint a picture of a civilization that left its mark in stone, aware that its world was fading and its knowledge was at risk of being forgotten. But what kind of civilization could have achieved this? Plato described Atlantis as a society of advanced engineers, capable of building ports, canals, and temples that rivaled the wonders of Greece. If the Great Pyramid was his work, its construction, 2.3 million blocks, some 15 tons, placed with sub-millimeter precision, suggests a mastery of logistics, mathematics, and material science. The pyramid's alignment with Orion's belt and the North Star, linked to the 25,920-year precession cycle, implies an understanding of astronomy that Egyptian records do not reflect. The absence of hieroglyphics, unlike in Egyptian tombs, could indicate a culture that valued the geometry of universal symbols and proportions over ephemeral languages. Atlanteans, or a similar civilization, could have built Giza as a time capsule, encoding knowledge in stone to survive a catastrophe they foresaw, be it a flood, earthquake, or climate change. This brings us to the legend of the Hall of Records, a concept popularized by the mystic Edgar Cayce in the early 20th century. Cayce claimed that beneath the Sphinx lies a chamber containing the wisdom of the Atlantean texts, tools, and perhaps technologies that could redefine our past. Radar scans in the 1980s and 2000s detected voids beneath the Sphinx and the pyramids, supporting the idea of hidden spaces. Sealed doors discovered by robots in the Great Pyramid shafts, one in 1993 by Upwat 2 and another in 2002 by the Pyramid rover, could lead to such a chamber. The copper pins on the first door, a symbol of divine power, may mark the threshold of this archive, destined only for those willing to understand its contents. The Egyptian authorities' refusal to explore these spaces, dismissing them as nothing, fuels speculation that they either know or fear what lies within. The Atlantis theory also connects with a broader pattern of lost civilizations. In Sumerian texts, the Enuma Elish speaks of a pre-flood world, shaped by the gods with divine tools. The Hindu Mahabharata describes ancient cities with technologies that seem like science fiction. These myths, across cultures, share a common thread, a golden age of knowledge that culminated in a catastrophe, leaving only fragments in stone or in history. The end of the African humid period, around 4000 BC, transformed the Sahara into a desert, forcing populations to move toward the Nile, where Egypt would rise. If Atlantis existed, its survivors could have brought their knowledge to Giza, building monuments to preserve what their island could not. The erosion of the Sphinx, the codes of the pyramid, the underground network, all could be their legacy, a message to future generations that their world once existed. Yet the silence surrounding these possibilities is deafening. Egyptian authorities, backed by institutions like UNESCO, strictly control the Giza excavations. Discoveries that challenge radar scans of the 4th dynasty chronology, robotic finds, and ancient texts are dismissed or suppressed. This pattern of concealment, as we have seen, suggests a fear not of artifacts, but of ideas. If Giza was built by a lost civilization, it would mean that the pharaohs were not the architects of its greatest wonders, but rather their heirs, who claimed a legacy they could not replicate. It would force us to rethink human progress, admitting that advanced societies arose and declined long before our records began. The legend of Atlantis, whether literal or symbolic, embodies this fear, a reminder that our history might be a cycle of forgetting, not a straight line to glory. Imagine the lost shores of Atlantis, its temples sinking beneath the waves, its people scattering to build one last monument under the stars of Egypt. The Great Pyramid and the Sphinx stand as their echo, silent but enduring, their secrets buried in stone and sand. The legend of Atlantis is more than a story. It's a question that invites us to look beyond the pharaohs, beyond our timelines, toward a civilization that left its mark not to be remembered, but to ensure we never forget what we've lost. The Great Pyramid of Giza is a marvel of stone. Its 2.3 million blocks are a testament to a precision that defies ancient tools. But it's not just the visible structure that captivates, but the invisible. The way sound moves within its chambers, as if its builders understood principles of acoustics we are only just beginning to comprehend. Enter the king's chamber, the granite heart of the pyramid, and you'll feel it. A space where whispers linger, where certain tones seem to vibrate the air itself. The chamber, built with enormous granite blocks brought from Aswan, 800 kilometers away, is a box of perfect proportions, 10 meters long, 5 meters wide, and 5.8 meters high. Its walls, so tightly woven that no blade can slip between them, create an acoustic environment unparalleled in Egypt. Speak softly, and your voice will be heard with supernatural clarity. Sing a low note, and the stone will seem to vibrate in response, as if tuned to a frequency intrinsic to its design. This isn't imagination, it's measurable. Researchers, including acoustic engineers, have studied the king's chamber and discovered that its dimensions are tuned to harmonic relationships, creating a resonance that amplifies specific frequencies. A tone of around 110 Hz, for example, produces a standing wave, a vibration that feels almost physical, as if the chamber had been built to capture and amplify sound. The quartz-rich granite is a natural conductor of vibrations, and its crystalline structure is capable of resonating like a tuning fork. When struck or exposed to certain sounds, the stone vibrates, sustaining the notes in ways that suggest intentional design. This is not the chaotic echo of a cave or tomb, but a controlled acoustic space, designed to manipulate sound with a precision that rivals modern concert halls. The phenomenon extends beyond the king's chamber. Deep within the Giza Plateau, at the Osiris Well near the Khafre Causeway, another acoustic mystery unfolds. This vertical tunnel, which plunges more than 30 meters into the bedrock, ends in a chamber with 6 side niches and a stone box, with no trace of burial. Here, too, sound behaves strangely. Whispers carry through the room with astonishing clarity, while louder sounds seem muffled, absorbed by the stone. Acoustic tests reveal that the chamber resonates at low frequencies, around 100 to 120 Hz, creating a sensation some describe as trance-like, as if the space were designed to alter perception. The smooth walls, carved with uniform tool marks, enhance this effect, suggesting a deliberate understanding of how sound interacts with stone. This is not a tomb, but a chamber built for singing, to house vibrations that connect the physical with the intangible. What could this mean? In ancient Egypt, sound was sacred, linked to creation and divine order. The god Thoth, master of wisdom, was said to have created the world with his word, and priests used chants, music, and instruments to communicate with the gods. But the acoustics of the Great Pyramid and the Osiris Well go beyond ritual. They suggest a technology of sound, a mastery of physics that could harness vibrations for purposes we can't fully understand. Some researchers propose that the king's chamber was a resonating chamber, designed to amplify specific frequencies for spiritual or practical purposes. The low hum of 110 Hz, for example, is known to induce calm or altered states of consciousness, a phenomenon studied in modern neuroscience. Could the pyramid builders have used sound to influence the mind, connect with cosmic forces, or even manipulate energy? This idea finds echoes in other ancient cultures. In Malta, the Olsaflieni Hypogeum, a 5,000-year-old underground temple, features chambers tuned to resonate at 110 and 111 Hz, creating effects that some use for rituals or healing. In Peru, the stone corridors of Chavin de Huanta amplify low-frequency sounds, guiding priests through dark passages with acoustic cues. These sites, like Giza, suggest a global tradition of acoustic engineering, where sound was not just art, but technology, used to shape experience or the environment. The granite of the Great Pyramid, with its quartz content, could act as a piezoelectric material, generating tiny electrical charges when vibrated. Although speculative, this is consistent with theories inspired by Nikola Tesla, who believed that ancient structures could harness the Earth's natural energies through resonance. Could the pyramid be a machine, not of gears but of frequencies, built to harness forces we've forgotten how to use? The implications are profound. If the pyramid and its underground chambers were designed for resonance, they could serve a purpose beyond symbolism. Some researchers, such as engineer Christopher Dunn, argue that the Great Pyramid was an energy generator that used sound or vibration to produce energy. The King's Chamber, with its granite and precise dimensions, could concentrate acoustic waves, perhaps to charge objects, influence materials, or even communicate remotely. The vents, aligned with the stars, could have served as conduits, not for air, but for energy, connecting the pyramid to cosmic rhythms. Although there is no direct evidence to support this, the chamber's acoustics and the pyramid's accuracy align with true north, implying a knowledge of the physics of pi and physigesta that exceeds documented Egyptian capabilities. The Osiris Pit, with its similar acoustic properties, could be part of this system, a subterranean counterpart designed to resonate in harmony with the pyramid above. This leads us to a bolder question. Who possessed such knowledge? The Egyptians of the 4th dynasty were skilled builders, but their texts show no understanding of advanced acoustics or piezoelectric effects. Their tools, such as copper chisels and wooden levers, could not have produced the flawless granite surfaces of the King's Chamber. The absence of hieroglyphics on the pyramid, unlike in other Egyptian tombs, suggests a purpose other than their religion. Could this technology belong to a lost civilization, one that understood sound as a force, not just a ritual? The Coptic scroll, burned before its translation, spoke of stone beacons built before language, hinting at the presence of a people who left their mark on Giza. The water erosion of the Sphinx, dating back 7,000 years, confirms this, as does the underground network, whose precise chambers suggest a forgotten infrastructure. The resonance of Giza also connects with the legend of Atlantis, described by Plato as a civilization of advanced engineers. If Atlantis existed, its survivors could have brought their knowledge to the Nile, building monuments to preserve their science in the face of impending catastrophe. The acoustic properties of the Osiris Pyramid and well could be vestiges of this technology, designed to harness sound for unknown purposes, such as healing, communication, or energy production. The pattern of concealment we have discovered, sealed tunnels, silenced robots, burned scrolls, suggests that modern authorities fear this truth. The Egyptian government, with the support of institutions like UNESCO, restricts access to the most sensitive archaeological sites at Giza. Could they be hiding evidence of ancient technology too powerful or alien to reveal? This fear of disclosure is not unique to Egypt. In India, the ancient submerged city of Dwarka, off the coast, is said to house advanced engineering structures, but excavations are limited. In Mesopotamia, cuneiform texts hint at divine weapons that manipulated sound or light, dismissed as myths. The conspiracy of silence as we have seen, guards the secrets of Giza behind closed doors and official denials. If the pyramid's acoustics were part of the technology of a lost civilization, revealing it could challenge our view of human progress, suggesting that we are not the first to harness such forces. Some even speculate about an extraterrestrial origin, as proposed by Erich von Däniken, who points to the pyramid's precision as evidence of extraterrestrial guidance. While a fringe idea, it underscores the mystery. Giza's technology seems beyond human, beyond ancient, beyond us. Could the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx be the work of extraterrestrial beings, visitors from the stars who left their mark in stone? The Great Pyramid of Giza stands as a monument to the impossible. The inner chambers, like the King's Chamber, are built from granite, transported 800 kilometers, fitted so tightly that no blade can slip between them. The air shafts point to Orion's belt at the North Star, just as they appeared in 2450 BC, suggesting a knowledge of stellar motion beyond Egyptian records. The pyramid encodes mathematical constants through phi, the dimensions of the Earth, in ways that imply a mastery of geometry and astronomy not documented in the 4th dynasty. The Sphinx, with its 7,000-year-old water erosion, suggests an even earlier origin. These anomalies complicate the narrative of copper tools and human labor. Could they point to a source beyond Earth, a civilization from the cosmos that shaped the wonders of Giza? This idea, radical as it sounds, was popularized by Erich von Däniken in his 1968 book, Chariots of the Gods. Von Däniken argued that ancient monuments, like the Great Pyramid, could only be explained by extraterrestrial intervention. The precision of Giza's construction, he claimed, required technology far superior to what humans possessed 4,500 years ago. Moving 15-ton blocks, aligning structures with celestial bodies, encoding universal constants. These feats suggest tools or knowledge not found in Egyptian texts. The absence of hieroglyphics on the pyramid, unlike any other royal tomb, adds to the mystery. Why build such a pyramid without leaving any room for doubt, without history, unless the builders were not of this world, and their purpose was not tied to human glory? Von Däniken proposed that extraterrestrials visited Earth, sharing their technology with early humans or constructing these structures as lighthouses, observatories, or even landing sites. The evidence, though speculative, is compelling from this perspective. The Great Pyramid's alignment with true north, to within a fraction of a degree, requires a comprehensive understanding of the Earth's axis and magnetic field, concepts unrecorded in ancient Egypt. The air shaft's stellar alignments, pointing to Orion and the North Star, suggest a fixation on the cosmos, as if the pyramid were a bridge between Earth and heaven. Orion, in Egyptian mythology, was linked to Osiris, the god of rebirth. But the precision of these alignments implies a scientific understanding, not just religious symbolism. The pyramid's mathematical codes, its perimeter, which equals 2 pi when divided by its height, and its slope, which incorporates the golden ratio, point to a universal language, one that might resonate with beings who navigate the stars. The lack of inscriptions, unlike the elaborate tombs of Egypt, could indicate that the builders spoke through geometry, a language that transcends the planets. Beyond Giza, other ancient sites reinforce this hypothesis. In Peru, the enormous geoglyphs of the Nazca Line, visible only from the air, extend across the desert, their purpose unknown. Were they signs for visitors from heaven, as von Däniken suggested? In Bolivia, the stone blocks of Pumapunku, cut with a precision that defies Inca tools, seem to belong to a technology we cannot explain. The megaliths of Baalbek, Lebanon, weighing up to 800 tons, defy human engineering even today. These sites, like Giza, share a distinctive hallmark. They appear suddenly, without clear technological predecessors, like a gift from an extraterrestrial source. The Sumerian Anunnaki, gods said to come from the sky, are described in ancient texts as masters of civilization. Could they, or beings like them, have guided the construction of Giza, leaving monuments as evidence of their presence? The underground network beneath Giza adds another layer. Radar scans from 2008 revealed chambers and tunnels, some with geometric precision, suggesting an infrastructure older than the pharaohs. The Well of Osiris, with its empty stone box and eerie acoustics, resonates at frequencies that alter perception, hinting at a purpose linked to sound or energy. Could these spaces be remnants of extraterrestrial technology, designed for communication, energy production, or even interstellar signaling? The sealed doors of the pyramid's wells, found by robots in 1993 and 2002, house copper pins, metals sacred to the Egyptian gods, associated with divine power. Were these markers of a technology we cannot comprehend, left behind by beings who knew their creations would outlive their visit? This brings us to the most provocative question: why the silence? Egyptian authorities, through the Supreme Council of Antiquities, have systematically blocked exploration of Giza's hidden spaces. Radar anomalies beneath the Sphinx, discoveries of robots in the pyramid, and historical reports of underground chambers are dismissed as nothing. This pattern of concealment, as we have seen, suggests fear of what might be revealed if the monuments at Giza were built by extraterrestrials, or with their guidance. Revealing this could radically change our understanding of human history. It would mean that we are not alone, that our greatest achievements could come from the stars. Institutions like UNESCO, which oversees archaeological sites, and global governments might fear the chaos such a revelation would wreak not only on science, but also on religion, culture, and our sense of identity. The conspiracy deepens when considering the broader pattern. Ancient texts from various cultures hint at the existence of celestial beings. The Hindu Vimanas, flying machines from the Mahabharata, describe aerial battles involving advanced technology. The Book of Enoch, an apocryphal text, speaks of watchers who descended from the heavens and taught humans forbidden knowledge. The Dogon people of Mali, with their deep knowledge of the Sirius star system, claimed that it originated from amphibious beings from the stars. These stories, dismissed as myths, share a common thread: contact with advanced entities that shaped primitive civilizations. Giza's anomalies, its precision, its cosmic alignments, and its silence fit this narrative, suggesting a connection to a cosmic intelligence that left its mark and then departed. But why leave such monuments? If extraterrestrials built or guided the construction of Giza, what was their purpose? The pyramid's resilience, surviving 4,500 years of earthquakes and invasions, suggests a design for geological time. Its mathematical code, phi, the dimensions of Earth, are universal, meant for any civilization advanced enough to measure them. Could it be a beacon signaling future visitors or humanity when we're ready? The Sphinx, gazing into the equinoctial sunrise, could mark a cosmic meeting point. Its water-eroded stone is a testament to its antiquity. The underground chambers, sealed and silent, could house technology or records, awaiting a moment when we're ready to understand. The pattern of suppression, burned scrolls, sealed tunnels, detained robots, makes it clear that some, perhaps even modern powers, know more than they admit. The inner chambers, the king's chamber, the grand gallery, and the subterranean passages are built of granite and limestone, fitted so tightly that no blade can slip between them. The air shafts point to stars like Orion's belt. The ratio of their dimensions encodes pi and phi, and their measurements reflect the polar radius and equatorial circumference of the Earth. This is said to have been the tomb of Khufu, built around 2580 BC. But the absence of hieroglyphics, grave goods, or a mummy refutes this version. The pyramid's silence, its cosmic alignments, its enduring strength, suggest a purpose far grander than a pharaoh's afterlife. What if the pyramid was never meant to honor the dead, but rather to safeguard knowledge for the living, for a future that might forget all else? This idea transforms the pyramid from a monument into a machine of gears or cables, but of geometry and endurance. Its design is too precise, too universal, to serve only one king or one era. The constants it encodes, phi, the dimensions of the Earth, are timeless, independent of language, culture, or belief. Unlike papyrus scrolls or clay tablets, which crumble or become illegible, stone endures. Unlike hieroglyphics, which require a Rosetta Stone to decipher, mathematics speaks to any civilization with the tools to measure. The pyramid's silence, its absence of inscriptions, is not an omission, but a strategy, a way to ensure that its message survives the collapse of empires, the loss of languages, and the forgetting of the gods. It stands as a repository, a vault of knowledge destined to survive catastrophe and guide a future world back to the truths it might have lost. The pyramid's mathematical codes are the key to this purpose. Divide its perimeter, 921.6 meters, by its height, 146.6 meters, and you get 6.2857, with an accuracy of 0.1% of 2 foot. The slope, 51.84 degrees, integrates the golden ratio, phi, a constant revered in various cultures for its harmony. Multiply the height by 43,200, and you get an approximation of the Earth's polar radius. Multiply the perimeter by the same factor, and you get the equatorial circumference. This value of 4300 is no coincidence. It is linked to the precession of the equinoxes, a 25,920-year cycle in the Earth's axial wobble, a phenomenon that requires centuries of observation to detect. These proportions are not the result of trial and error, but of deliberate calculation, a numerical language that transcends time. Whoever built the pyramid knew that pi and phi would remain true, that the shape of the Earth would endure, that the stars would change but return. They built a structure to preserve these truths, not for Egypt, but for anyone who came after. This concept of repository finds echoes in other ancient sites. Stonehenge, built around 2500 BC, aligns with the solstices, encoding astronomical cycles in its stones. The megaliths at Baalbek, Lebanon, some weighing 800 tons, suggest a purpose beyond mere architecture. Their precision hints at a lost science. The submerged structures at Yonaguni, off Japan, possibly 10,000 years old, feature terraces that define natural erosion, as if built to withstand rising seas. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, dating to 9600 BC, with its carved pillars aligned with the stars, predates agriculture and writing, yet reveals an inexplicable sophistication. These sites, like Giza, seem like anchors in time, built to survive the disasters that erased their creators' lives. The Great Pyramid, with its cosmic alignments and mathematical precision, might be the greatest of these, a time capsule designed for a world recovering from collapse. What kind of collapse? The African humid period, which ended around 4000 BC, transformed the Sahara from a green paradise to a desert, displacing populations to the Nile, where Egypt would rise. Geological records show floods, climate changes, and catastrophes that could have destroyed entire civilizations. Plato's legend of Atlantis, a society submerged by the sea 9,000 years before his time, could reflect such a catastrophe. If the pyramid builders, whether Atlanteans, extraterrestrials, or a lost human culture, had foreseen this, they might have built Giza as a safeguard, a way to preserve their knowledge amidst the chaos. The pyramid's resilience, surviving earthquakes, invasions, and 4,500 years, demonstrates that it was built for geological time, not human reigns. Its silent hieroglyphics, with no royal pretensions, guarantee that its message is universal, intended for any civilization, in any era, capable of grasping its truths. The pyramid's acoustics, as we have explored, further this purpose. The king's chamber resonates at frequencies such as 110 Hz, inducing calm or altered states, while the Osiris well, located below, amplifies the whispers in mysterious ways. These properties suggest a sound technology, perhaps used to connect with cosmic forces or preserve knowledge through vibration. Could the pyramid be a memory machine, its chambers tuned to frequencies that encode information in ways we still don't understand? Nikola Tesla, who studied resonance and energy, believed that ancient structures could tap into the Earth's natural forces. The pyramid's quartz-rich granite could act as a piezoelectric conductor, generating charges as it vibrates. This speculative idea fits with the pyramid's design, its precision, its alignments, its silence, suggesting a purpose beyond ritual, a technology destined to endure. This leads us to a troubling question. Why hide this knowledge? The pattern of concealment we've uncovered, seal tunnels, detain robots, burn scrolls, suggests a deliberate effort to keep Giza's secrets hidden. Egyptian authorities, backed by institutions like UNESCO, restrict access to sensitive sites, downplaying radar anomalies and robot discoveries. If the pyramid is a repository for future generations, why suppress its exploration? Perhaps the truth it holds about a lost civilization, advanced technology, or even extraterrestrial origins is too disruptive. It would challenge the narrative of Egypt as the cradle of the wonders of Giza, suggesting that the pharaohs were guardians, not creators. It would force us to admit that human history is not a constant ascent, but a cycle of rise and fall, with knowledge acquired and lost over millennia. The conspiracy of silence extends beyond Egypt. In Mesoamerica, conquistadors burned Mayan codices, erasing knowledge that could have rivaled European science. In Mesopotamia, texts hinting at pre-flood civilizations were dismissed as myths until sites like Göbekli Tepe proved otherwise. The Great Pyramid, with its universal codes, might be a safeguard against such losses, a monument built to endure in oblivion. Its builders, human or not, chose stone over words, geometry over language, aware that civilizations fade, but numbers endure. The pyramid is a reset point, a beacon for a future that might need to rediscover pi, phi, or Earth's place in the cosmos, an engraved lesson for a world reborn from ruin. Welcome back, seekers of the eternal shadows, to the final chapter of Mystery Bedtime Story. I am Mr. H, your faithful guide through the hidden enigmas of time, where the sands of Giza hold truths too profound for our waking minds to fully comprehend. During these nights, we have traveled together across the Giza plateau, standing before the Sphinx with its water-eroded scars that whisper of rains long since ceased, tracing the cosmic codes of the Great Pyramid that hold the very secrets of the universe. We have interrogated its silent chambers, empty of a pharaoh's remains, and discovered stelae that paint Khufu and Thutmose IV. Not as builders, but as humble restorers of something far older. We have descended into the hidden tunnels beneath Giza, followed robots to seal doors that guard hidden mysteries, and mourned the loss of a Coptic scroll lost in the flames before its words could rewrite our past. We have unraveled a conspiracy of silence hatched by the powerful, explored the legend of Atlantis as a possible birthplace of these wonders, and even dared to consider alien hands shaping the stones. We have heard the pyramid's resonant hum, a symphony of ancient physics hinting at technologies beyond our understanding. Now, as the desert night deepens and the stars circle overhead in their eternal dance, we come to the conclusion, a moment to weave these threads into a tapestry that reveals the true shape of Giza's enigma. It is not the shape of kings or gods, nor a monument to glory or death. It is the shape that memory forgot, a shape carved in stone that defies forgetting, a repository designed not for the past, but for the future. The Great Pyramid, the Sphinx, the entire plateau that stands like a silent archive, a vault of knowledge built to withstand the collapse of worlds, awaiting the moment when humanity needs to remember what it has lost. Close your eyes. Let the gentle rhythm of my voice carry you away, and allow this final tale to unfold like the horizon at dawn, revealing the light in the darkness. From the beginning, clues have pointed to a truth that transcends the Egyptian pharaohs. The Sphinx, with its erosion patterns carved by rains 7,000 years ago, predates the arid desert we know, suggesting a builder from a greener, forgotten age. The Great Pyramid, with its base aligned to true north with impossible precision, encodes pi and phi in its dimensions, reflecting the curvature of the earth and the precession of the Issa equinox, knowledge that should have required telescopes and calculus, tools absent from ancient Egypt's arsenal. The king's empty chamber, resonant with perception-altering frequencies, feels less like a tomb and more like a chamber in cosmic harmony. The Stelethi inventory and the dream language of restoration, not creation, as if Khufu and Thutmose II had stumbled upon sacred sites they could honor but not claim. The underground network, with its precise chambers and otherworldly acoustics, hints at an infrastructure with a purpose unknown to us, while sealed doors discovered by robots remain closed, their copper bolts gleaming like warnings from another time. These elements, intertwined, form a narrative that is not an Egyptian triumph, but an inheritance, a legacy of a lost civilization that knew its end was near. Whether Atlantis, as Plato described it, sinking beneath the waves in a cataclysm of floods and earthquakes, or any other advanced society erased by the transformation of the Sahara, the builders of Giza seem to have foreseen oblivion. They did not inscribe their names or stories in hieroglyphics, knowing that languages fade and cultures crumble. Instead, they codified their wisdom in the universal language of mathematics and geometry, etching constants like pi and phi in stone that would outlast empires. The pyramid's silence is its strength and its message, destined for any future, for any people, who might measure its slopes and rediscover the shape of the earth, the stellar cycles, the proportions that unite the cosmos. Imagine a world on the brink of collapse, with rainfall decreasing, seas rising, societies fracturing under the weight of change. The builders, masters of astronomy and engineering, construct a monument to survive the storm, not to glorify themselves, but to anchor knowledge for those who come after. They align it with the stars, knowing that Orion's belt would return in its cycle, a celestial clock marking the passing of millennia. They tune its chambers to resonate, perhaps to preserve information in vibrations, or to guide future seekers through altered states of consciousness. The Sphinx, half lion, half god, contemplates the equinoctial sunrise, marking the renewal of time. Its waters mark the flood that nearly wiped out its world. This is not a king's tomb, but a library for humanity, a repository where the form of memory endures, even when memory itself is forgotten. The conspiracy of concealment we have uncovered makes sense from this perspective. Egyptian authorities, scholars, and global institutions protect Giza not just for tourism or conservation reasons, but because its truth threatens our fragile sense of progress. If the pyramid is a time capsule of a lost civilization, it acknowledges that advanced knowledge has risen and fallen before, that our own world might not be the peak, but a fleeting chapter. The burned Coptic scroll, which describes stone beacons before language, was silenced to prevent this revelation. The sealed doors, the dismissed radars, the suspended explorations, all of this protects a narrative that prevents us from seeing our cyclical past. Even the bold hypothesis of extraterrestrial involvement fits here. If beings from the stars built or guided Giza, the pyramid becomes a cosmic repository, a message from beyond, waiting for us to evolve enough to understand it. But the pyramid's true power lies in its patience. It demands no belief or worship. It simply stands, its stones resisting the passage of time, its codes waiting to be measured again. For a future civilization emerging from the ruins, perhaps after our own collapse, a model is offered. The ratio of pi to rebuild circles, phi for harmony and design. The dimensions of Earth to map the planet. Alignments with Orion remind them of the stars' eternal dance. Echoing chambers teach them to listen to the hum of the universe. This is the form memory forgot to form. So enduring it outlives oblivion. A monument built not to remember the past, but to ensure the future remembers how to begin anew. As you conclude this journey, let the weight of Giza's enigma wash over you like a desert night. The Great Pyramid and the Sphinx are more than stones. They are a question, a challenge, a gift. They invite us to look beyond the stories we've been told, to question the silence, to ponder the truths hidden in plain sight. Whether built by a lost human civilization, guided by aliens, or born from the last breath of Atlantis, Giza stands as a repository of what matters most, the knowledge that connects us to the cosmos, the constants that remain when all else fades. In this way, memory endures, forgotten but not forgotten, waiting with the patience of stone for the day we are ready to remember.